हरिओम।
हरिओम सर।
हरिओम।
गुड मॉर्निंग, गुड मॉर्निंग।
हरिओम।
Okay, let's start. ॐ सहना भवतु, सहनौ भुनक्तु, सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै, तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। Okay, let's start. Are there any questions? Do we have any questions?
उत्सव जी, बचपन में हमें गाना सुनते थे,
Hmm.
आया था किस काम को, क्यों सोया चादर तान के, तो संभाल ओ गाफिला, अपना आप पहचान ले। तो मेरी स्ट्रेस खाली अपना आप पहचानने के ऊपर है। मैंने सुना है कि भगवान जी ने गीता में कहा है, स्व अध्याय स्व अध्ययन या स्व अध्याय के ऊपर तप करना। तो ये सब अध्याय मतलब कि अपने इंट्रोस्पेक्शन करना अपने ऊपर, इसके ऊपर, और तप करना। तप बोले तो टू टू सर्च मोर in your inner defects or faculties and all that. I presume ke must be regarding knowing about your Atma. It has ultimately to reach the Atman, which we are not able to discern normally. Normally, what we know about ourselves is what you see us and then tell us कि तुम ऐसे हो, या फलाना ये बोलता है तुम ऐसे हो, तुम ऐसे हो। हम अपने आप को अपने हिसाब से रिसर्च नहीं करते। तो थोड़ा आप इसके ऊपर कुछ व्याख्या करना चाहेंगे तो हमारे को अच्छा लगेगा। मेरा मेरा क्वेश्चन है ये
हाँ जी।
कि स्व अध्याय सेल्फ इंट्रोस्पेक्शन है या रिसर्च है या क्या है?
हाँ जी। सो बहुत अच्छा क्वेश्चन है। ऑल ऑफ वेदांता इज अबाउट स्व अध्याय। वेदांता का सब्जेक्ट ही स्व अध्याय है। जैसे हिस्ट्री का सब्जेक्ट है द इवेंट्स ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, फिजिक्स का सब्जेक्ट है द फिजिकल लॉज ऑफ नेचर। तो वेदांता का सब्जेक्ट ही है द इंडिविजुअल, द सेल्फ, or rather what is within this individual, and ultimately the innermost aspect of you, the individual, is your atma. तो वेदांता का पूरा सब्जेक्ट ही यही है कि see, there are two different levels to look at this. One is what we call the relative level, and one is what we call the absolute level. Relative level पे you are introvert as opposed to extrovert. You are introspective as opposed to constantly looking at the world and measuring things superficially. On an absolute level, आपने जो बात कही कि it's the realization of one's atma, one's real nature, one's real identity. So all of Vedanta is guiding you towards being introspective, towards being introvert, towards looking within, having a sense of self-analysis. And beyond that, it's not only आपने जो कहा कि अपने में defects ढूंढना, it's not only about finding defects. Actually, it's not about finding something. It's about looking for it. It's about falling in love with the mystery of ये है क्या। देखिए एक बहुत अद्भुत चीज है कि
very good.
जीवन जो चीज है, दिस लाइफ, इट्स, वी टेक इट फॉर ग्रांटेड. एवरी डे वी वेक अप, depending on the season, the temperature is something, but it's mota moti the same. The pressure is maintained. Sun rises at a particular time. People all wake up at a particular time. Life goes on. The world goes on. We take it for granted. But the very fact that we're waking up each day, the very fact that आप सो के उठ रहे हो, आप सोने के समय कहाँ थे? जब आप सो रहे थे तो आप कहाँ थे? हम सोचते नहीं इस बारे में. आपका मन जो है, ये, we say the mind creates the world. See, the mind creates the world. Depending on your mood, depending on your state of mind, depending on um, what you believe or what you are truly obsessing with, you construct that kind of world. See, these are all things which we don't um, हम गौर नहीं करते, राइट. आज का जो टॉपिक है, बर्थ एंड डेथ फॉर एग्जांपल, हम आते हैं, कहाँ से आते हैं, कैसे आते हैं? हमारे पेरेंट्स के द्वारा तो हमें एक बॉडी मिल रही है, हमें एक शरीर मिल रही है, पर उस शरीर में क्या घुस के आता है, वो कहाँ से आता है? हाँ. या तो आप बोलो कि आप अपने पेरेंट्स के कॉपीराइट हो. हाँ, सब आपके पेरेंट्स से ही आता है. कहाँ से आता है, कैसे आता है? घर पे बच्चा पैदा होता है, हम बहुत खुश होते हैं, पर हम सोचते नहीं कि कहाँ से आया. कल भी मैं अपने नेफ्यू के साथ खेल रहा था, बहुत प्यारा है ये, हम बहुत खुश हैं. जो भी आया अच्छा आया है. जो भी आया है अच्छा आया है, बट कहाँ से आया, कैसे आया, क्या आया है, हम सोचते नहीं इस बारे में, राइट. और फिर जब किसी का देहांत होता है, किसी की मृत्यु होती है, तो वो कहाँ जाते हैं, हम सोचते नहीं इसके बारे में. ठीक है, कभी कभी वेदांता क्लास में सोच लेते हैं, मतलब एक आध बार, महीने में एक बार सोच लेते हैं उसके बारे में, वो भी सुपरफिशियली. सो इन सब पे विचार करना, इन सब पे विचार करना is an essential aspect of life which we generally ignore. So Vedanta wants to draw our attention to that. That is Swa-Adhyaya. Swa-Adhyaya is self study. स्वयं पे अध्ययन करना, self study, understanding your own nature, understanding your own being, understanding what is this thing made up of, where does it come from, where is it going, what is its um, what is it made up of. तो इनिशियली जब हम स्टडी करते हैं, ठीक है, हम समझते हैं कि ठीक है, एक शरीर के अंदर एक मन और बुद्धि है, या एक शरीर बियॉन्ड द बॉडी, रादर देर इज अ माइंड एंड इंटेलेक्ट. एंड इस मन की ये क्वालिटीज़ होते हैं, बुद्धि की ये क्वालिटीज़ होते हैं. बुद्धि को अगर बुद्धि से अगर मन को कंट्रोल और रेगुलेट करो, आपकी जीवन एक हद तक संभल जाएगी. That's one level. But beyond that, what lies beyond the mind, what lies beyond the intellect, ये ईगो जो चीज़ है, ये क्या है, इसके ऊपर अध्ययन करना इज द what Vedanta will say, it's the essential thing you must be doing in life. हम ये छोड़ के सब कुछ कर रहे हैं. This should be the priority. This should be the priority. Hmm? See, where does this lie in the priority of things? You may say, ठीक है, पहले my finances, my work is my priority, my kids are my priority, then something else is my priority, then comes Vedanta, right? But according to Vedanta, this should be priority. एक्चुअली शुड की भी बात नहीं है, आपको जो करना है आप करो। वेदांता इज नॉट इंटरेस्टेड आप क्या कर रहे हो। वेदांता बस यही कहता है, उपनिषद में आता है ये, यह चेद वेदी दथ सत्यमस्ति न चेद हा वेदीन महति विनष्टि। महति विनष्टि, अगर आप इस जीवन में इस मिस्ट्री को अनकवर ना करो, इस स्वाध्याय में आगे ना बढ़ो, तो आपने एक अमूल्य, एक इनवैल्यूएबल अपॉर्चुनिटी खो दी है। इट्स अ महति विनष्टि, इट्स अ ग्रेट लॉस। आपने एक इन्वेस्टमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटी खो दी है। अब ये सोचो ना, आपने एक इन्वेस्टमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटी खो दी, राइट। और अब मैं ये भी नहीं कहूँगा कि आपको इस स्वाध्याय में अंत तक पहुँचना है, वो सब बात की बातें हैं, हम कितने दूर पहुँचे इस स्वाध्याय के मार्ग में, तो आओ, एटलीस्ट स्टेप ऑन दिस जर्नी, एटलीस्ट टेक अ कपल ऑफ स्टेप्स अहेड। स्वामी जी हमें कहते थे कि अभी भी कहते हैं, आई एम श्योर दैट forget enlightenment and all of these things. Even having the suspicion, even having that question, even having the thought कि ये क्या है, ये जिंदगी क्या है। People are waking up and going through their daily activities. 9 बज गया, 8:30 बज रहा है, ऑलरेडी गुड़गांव दिल्ली हाईवे में ट्रैफिक है। लोग कहाँ भटक रहे हैं, कहाँ जा रहे हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं। और मैं ये लेक्चर देने के लिए नहीं कह रहा हूँ, इसके बारे में जेन्युइनली सोचना कि ये ह्यूमन डिजायर क्या है। हम वी आर एंडलेसली जस्ट परस्यूइंग थिंग्स, ये गुड और बैड की बात नहीं है। व्हाट इज द नेचर ऑफ हैप्पीनेस, व्हाट इज इट दैट वी आर लुकिंग फॉर, व्हाट ऑन अर्थ एम आई लुकिंग फॉर। एंड इस बात में सस्पिशन होना कि शायद जो मैं ढूंढ रहा हूँ वो इस दुनिया में नहीं मिलेगी, दैट्स सस्पिशन। स्वामी जी कहते थे अगर वो सस्पिशन आ जाए तो आपने इस मार्ग में, इस पाथ में, इस अध्याय के जर्नी में आप काफी आगे बढ़ गए। सो स्वाध्याय इज नथिंग बट waking up with these questions, waking up with the awareness that this is a mystery. हाँ, day in day out I take these things for granted, but I will keep it at the back of my mind. एंड अगर आप इस चीज़ को अपने मन में रखो, आपकी दुनिया बदल जाएगी। द वे यू लुक एट पीपल, द वे यू लुक एट हाउ यू इंटरेक्ट विद द वर्ल्ड, हाउ यू इंटरेक्ट विद अदर्स, हाउ यू ट्रीट अदर्स, इट्स ऑल चेंज, इट्स ऑल ट्रांसफॉर्म। हम you'll move with an attitude of gratitude. You'll live with a sense of service. You'll live with a sense of selflessness. So all of these qualities, which we call so-called spiritual qualities, will be um, um, soaked into you if you fall in love with Swadhyaya. Right? If you commit yourself to Swadhyaya. And Swadhyaya कैसे करते हैं? जिस हद तक आप कर सको उस हद तक करो। And best is start early in the morning. First few hours in the morning, if you can dedicate to um, these thoughts early in the morning. For example, we're taking a 45-minute, 1-hour class right now. We are discussing. It's an engagement in these thoughts, right? This will hopefully power our day and then power our life. That's the idea. So स्वाध्याय, गीता जी में कहते हैं स्वाध्याय सबसे हाईएस्ट यज्ञ है। सबसे हाईएस्ट यज्ञ स्वाध्याय है। इट्स द बिगेस्ट सर्विस यू कैन डू टू द वर्ल्ड। सेल्फ स्टडी, सेल्फ इंट्रोस्पेक्शन। आई कैन गो ऑन, मतलब ये तो एक घंटे की क्लास हो सकती है, राइट, बट 5-7 मिनट में जो कह सका मैंने कह दिया।
बहुत अच्छा लगा, बहुत बहुत ही सुंदर आपने बोला। और ये हमारा जो तप है या यज्ञ है, ये हमारे को मतलब कि डेली करना चाहिए, यही आप कह रहे हैं ना?
करेक्ट, एब्सोल्युटली। तो हम तो 2 बार मिलते हैं, बट डे इन डे आउट, डेली। Any other questions? Are there any questions? Okay, so we were discussing the law of karma, and after the law of karma, of course, the law of karma says that you are a result of your past, and your present is a result of your past, and your future is a result of the present. What you do in the present means the future is a continuation of the past, modified in the present. The future is a continuation of the past, modified in the present. But where does this past begin? Where does this future end? It begs the question, what is the past? What is the future? And how far does it extend? And that naturally leads to the discussion on birth and death, because the general consensus is that life begins at birth and life ends at death. But is that so? If life begins at birth, then what does a baby bring with it? What karma does a baby bring with it? Does that mean every baby starts with zero karma? If life ends at death, then what happens? Does someone just exit their accounts at death? Hmm. According to Vedanta, that's not the case. According to Vedanta, Vedanta propounds the theory of reincarnation, right? So first it talks about the concept of birth and death, and that naturally leads to the discussion on reincarnation. So we had started this topic. In fact, we were halfway through it. So we had perhaps read the first 4 or 5 paragraphs, but we'll just quickly glance through it. So the first thing to appreciate is that there's nothing terrible about birth and death. It's worth your study, it's worth your investigation. In fact, it's a beautiful, incredible, mystical phenomenon. आप डेथ मत पढ़ो, आप बर्थ पढ़ो. डेथ में तो सब डिप्रेस हो जाते हैं. ठीक है, आप बर्थ पढ़ो. ठीक है, आपके घर में नया बच्चा हुआ है, आप उसे पढ़ो. It's wonderful. It's incredible. The very fact that 12 to 15 months ago, it was nothing. There was nothing. The father gave a sperm, the mother gave an egg. And now you have an incredible creature in front of you with unique qualities which neither of the parents may have. Sure, some physical traits might be similar, some habitual traits might be similar, but over a period of time you see that the individual is altogether unique. Of course there's an overlap, of course there's a relation, of course there's a intersection, as we say, but the individual itself is unique. There are things beyond what pertains to their source, the both parents. So what Vedanta says is birth and death. First of all, the first thing to when you step into the study of birth and death are two sides of the same coin. For something to be born, something has to die, and for something to die, once something dies, something new is born. It takes its place. The concept of creation and destruction they are synonymous and they are simultaneous. The moment something is created, a previous thing is destroyed. The moment something is destroyed, a new thing is created automatically. You break a stick in two pieces are born. The single stick is dead. The morning is born. Right now, we're all up early in the morning. The night has died. Soon the morning will die and afternoon will be born. It's a continuous flux of change. And birth and death is nothing but change. So, birth and death is an expression of change. Birth and death is an expression of change. And here I invite you to think of death not as just a single phenomenon of what we call dehant, right? What we call dehant, there's a reason for the word dehant, because it is dehak ant. It is death of the body, of the deha. So it's a very specific change. As such, you're going through death and birth continuously. Every moment you are dying, every moment you are being reborn. In fact, if you look far back enough into the past, you will not even recognize who was that person. Who was that person 10 years ago? I can't recognize them. Hopefully, hopefully you can't recognize them. That's वही तो मजा है. Hopefully you have changed and grown so much that you can't recognize the person 10 years ago. Because that person has died slowly. That person has died slowly, gradually, but now altogether, 10 years later, you can't even recognize them. What's happened? That person has died, this person is born. Death is happening while you are living. Because death is nothing but change. Death and birth is nothing but two sides of the same coin. As change happens, things die, and simultaneously, it's turned a new leaf, things are born. Now, dehant is a very specific kind of death. It's another death. Just like you're dying every moment, dehant is a kind of death. It's like a reset almost. From a perspective of the body, it's a change where your body changes altogether. Your physical form changes. You are giving up this physical form and you're taking up a new physical form. And we've talked endlessly about how your individuality is not limited to your body. Your body is merely a vehicle. Your body is a sthula sharira. Sthula sharira means gross body. But beyond your sthula sharira, there is the sukshma sharira. This individual is a combination of the Atma, the Kharana Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Sthula Sharira. For simplicity, Atman, intellect, mind, body. Simple. This individual is a combination, is a khichdi of Atma, intellect, mind, body. Body, mind, intellect, Atman. The body is called the Sthula Sharira. The mind, intellect is called the Sukshma Sharira. And the Atman is the Atman, it's the spirit. Now, when death happens, it's the transition from one sthula sharira into another sthula sharira. So it's a monumental change. But at the end of the day, it's a change. At the end of the day, it's a change which is constantly happening, right? So this concept of creation and destruction, that's a fundamental aspect of this world we live in, and therefore we surrender to it, we bow to it. It's an inevitable aspect of this world. Creation and destruction is an inevitable aspect of this world. Without this, there can be no maintenance. In fact, things are maintained through creation and destruction. Things are maintained through constant change. This world is what we call in physics a dynamic equilibrium. Through dynamic equilibrium, things are being maintained. There's no staticness in this world. There's no static equilibrium. And therefore we symbolize creation, destruction, and maintenance in the form of gods. We deify them. We express our surrender in the form of bowing to three deities, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva or Mahesh, and Vishnu. Creation, destruction, and maintenance, the fundamental forces of nature of this world. And I don't need to talk about the extent to which these gods are worshipped. But For you and me, for the Gyanis, as it were, the intellectuals, as it were, scriptures have indicated that actually these are not three separate gods. Hmm? There's no need to have a separate Shaivite sect, a separate Vaishnavite sect. At a time when perhaps Brahmaji was also worshipped, maybe there was a Brahmite sect also. Huh? God knows. Nowadays it's not worshipped. Nowadays, rarely is Lord Brahma worshipped. That's why we don't have a sect. But we've been given the indication that actually these three are not separate, they are aspects of the same function. Creation, maintenance, and destruction is a simultaneous process. They are different facets, different expressions of the same process. And that's why these three gods are combined in the form of the Tatreya. So this is all beautiful symbolisms which are definitely worth studying. So this is where we left off in the previous class, and
पर
we'll.
पर फिर भी उत्सव जी,
हाँ जी.
आपने देखिए डेथ के ऊपर इतना भय रहता है। आपने ये गाना तो बहुत पॉपुलर गाना सुना भी होगा, मैं डर दी रब रब कर दी,
हम्म.
लोकी कहन छुई मुई। इसका मतलब यही है कि डेथ के बारे में हम इतना डरे हुए हैं, इतना डरे हुए हैं कि रब रब करते रहते हैं, भगवान को नाम याद करते रहते हैं। और क्या उसका असर क्या होता है, हम छुई मुई हो जाते हैं, मतलब कि इतने कमजोर हो जाते हैं कि पूछिए मत। तो जो भय है डेथ का, वो इतना हमारे ऊपर हावी रहता है। फियर ऑफ डेथ जिसको बोलते हैं। फियर तो कई तरह के हैं, बट डेथ का फियर सबसे बड़ा है।
बट ओम जी, हम रब रब सिर्फ डेथ के बारे में नहीं करते, हम किसी भी चीज के बारे में करते हैं। जिस
नहीं,
भी चीज से हम अटैच्ड हैं, हम उसके लिए रब रब करते हैं। भगवान ये बचा दो.
बचा दो। हाँ, जो भी है।
Of course, what you're saying is that the strongest attachment is to your life. Which is why even when you study biology, one of the strongest instincts of an individual is self-preservation.
क्या
Flight or fight nature
फाइट ऑफ राइट।
built into our being, to a point where we think it is our real nature. See, why is the ego so self-defensive? कोई आपको कुछ गलत कहता है, कुछ आपको someone points out some fault in you, why do you get self-defensive all of a sudden? It's a subtle expression of fight or flight. It's a self-defense. Because you're attached to yourself. Your self-preservation is very important. And आप खोना नहीं चाहते हो जो आपके पास है, जिससे आपको लगाव है, वो आप खोना नहीं चाहते हो. अल्टीमेटली आपको सबसे बड़ी लगाव किस चीज़ से है? इस जिंदगी से है. भगवान जाने क्यों है इस जिंदगी से लगाव. एक हाथ पे तो आप कंप्लेन करते रहते हो, ये नहीं ठीक है, ये अच्छा नहीं है, ये खराब है, ये गलत है. आप कंप्लेन करते रहते हो दिन रात, और फिर आपको लगाव है. इट्स अ पैराडॉक्स. अगर कोई सोचे इस बारे में, इफ समवन एक्चुअली थिंक्स अबाउट इट, on the one hand people are complaining all the time about the world, about people, about life, about things, about how this didn't work out, how that didn't work out. On the other hand, they are attached to it. They don't want to lose it. It's madness. But yes, आपने सोचा कि भगवान एक बहुत पावरफुल चीज़ है जो खोने से बचा सकते हैं. तो उसे आप रब रब करते रहते हो, कोई नहीं बचाएगा. आज तक इवन लॉर्ड कृष्णा हैड टू पास, इवन लॉर्ड रामा हैड टू पास. आप कौन हो यार? So this concept of inevitability of death is see the first words of Lord Krishna to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, the first solid verse in chapter 2. अशोचानन वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश भाषसे, गतासु न गतासुंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पंडिताः. He says, you're talking big words of wisdom. आप बड़ी बड़ी बातें कर रहे हो, आप इसके बारे में बात कर रहे हो, उसके बारे में बात कर रहे हो, आप तर्पण के बारे में बात कर रहे हो, आप एंसेस्टर्स के बारे में बात कर रहे हो, आप सोसाइटी के बारे में बात कर रहे हो। फर्स्ट चैप्टर में अर्जुना बहुत बड़ी बड़ी बातें कर रहा था, जैसे आप बहुत बड़ी बड़ी बातें कर रहे हो भैया, बट आप यहाँ बैठे हुए रो रहे हो, बड़ी बड़ी बातें करके आप यहाँ बैठ करके रो रहे हो, और उसके बारे में रो रहे हो जिसके बारे में रोना नहीं चाहिए। अशोचानन वशोचस्त प्रज्ञावादाम शिभाषित। गतासून गतासूंश्च न अनुशोचन्ति पंडिता। जो पंडित हैं, जो ट्रूली लर्नेड हैं, जो ज्ञानी हैं, दोज हु आर एनलाइटेंड और लर्नेड, दे डोंट ग्रीव। न अनुशोचन्ति फॉर व्हाट? दे डोंट ग्रीव फॉर गतासून और अगतासून. Gatasoon is gone, finished, those that have passed, and agatasoon, जो अभी तक गया नहीं है. So इस दुनिया में बस दो तरीके की चीज़ें होती हैं, वो जो चले गए हैं, वो जो चला गया है, और वो जो अभी तक गया नहीं है. शायद आपके पास है आपका पैसा, आपकी जायदाद, आपके भाई बहन, माता पिता, जो भी हो, फैमिली, बच्चे, कोई चले गए हैं, कुछ चला गया है, और कुछ अभी तक गया नहीं है, आपके पास रखा हुआ है, और आप सोच रहे हो कि मैं बचा करके रखूंगा, सेव करके रखूंगा. उसके लिए आप रब रब कर रहे हो, पर रब खुद कहते हैं, भगवान खुद कहते हैं, अगर आप भगवान की सुनो, आप भगवान को मानते हो बट भगवान की नहीं मानते हो ना, आप भगवान की सुनो ना. भगवान ही कहते हैं कि भाई अगर आप में बुद्धि हो, अगर आप ज्ञानी हो, तो आप ये समझोगे कि या तो चीज़ें चली गई हैं या जाने वाली है, गतासून या अगतासून. So the very first verse of the Bhagavad Gita is talking about the inevitability of things, the impermanence of things. अगर आप उसको मानते हो, अगर आप उसको समझते हो, तो आप ज्ञानी हो. अगर आप नहीं समझते हो, आप रो धो कुछ भी करो, कोई भगवान नहीं बचाने. सो अब या तो आप इसके बारे में डर करके परेशान रहो, दैट्स वन थिंग, या इसको समझो, इस बात को समझो. तो वेदांता कहते हैं इस बात को समझो, स्टार्ट कॉन्टेम्पलेटिंग अबाउट द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ बर्थ एंड डेथ. It's not something to be shuddered with. It's not something to be afraid of. Accept the inevitability. Accept the impermanence of things. That's when you become truly human. And आपको दी गई है, एक बुद्धि दी गई है, जिसके द्वारा आप इस बारे में समझ सको, आप पढ़ सको, आप अपने आप को आगे बढ़ा सको. Right? You've been given an intellect with which you can understand this, with which you can accept this, with which you can master this. You can transcend it, you can go beyond it, right? So some believe that when a person dies, so we've talked about the concept of creation, destruction, and maintenance. Now he talks, he speaks further on it. So some believe that when a person dies, nothing remains, that death is the end. Is that so? Let's hear it.
Some believe that when a person dies, nothing remains, that death is the end of the personality, and that there is no trace of him thereafter. Others disagree with this view. They do not consider death as finality. They believe in the continuity of life, and that the present incarnation is only a link in the chain of his entire life. Yet others posit the existence of imaginary realms of heaven and hell, where they believe humans go after death. These beliefs are not based on rational analysis and derivation. Instead, you must collect relevant data, study them carefully, and draw intelligent conclusions from them. Only then would you get a clearer idea of the phenomenon of birth and death.
So some believe that after that nothing happens, nothing remains. Khatam, finish. YOLO, you only live once. जो करना है अभी करो. A lot of people don't know what they believe in. A lot of people believe कि आप तारे बन जाते हो, आप कुछ बन जाते हो, हाँ, but they don't have any concrete concept around it. And that's most of us actually. हाँ, most of us will say, हाँ, कुछ तो होता होगा. हाँ, we want to hope that oh, whoever we loved or whatever we love is somewhere, somehow. And some are very particular. Yes, I know exactly what happens. There are different realms. पितृ लोक होता है, ये लोक होता है, वो लोक होता है, और यहाँ गए वहाँ गए, परसों वहाँ से निकलने वाले हैं, हाँ 4 दिन बाद वो होने वाली है. They know exactly what's going to happen. Like Arjuna in chapter 1, he knew exactly if you don't give the rice balls and the water to our ancestors, something will happen, this will happen. So, but nobody takes to this subject rationally. Nobody thinks about it fundamentally. Um, Vedanta invites you to do that. It invites you to make it a topic of consideration and draw an intelligent conclusion. देखिए, a lot of people will not even, we've talked about this, that the bulk of people are emotional. They don't need an explanation. They're happy with whatever explanation is given to them. Right? The bulk of people are happy with the explanation कि एक पितृलोक है, ये है, वो है, 4 चीज करो. And because what is more important is, when someone asked me last week, what is the symbolism of um, Pitru Puja? It is more the thought you associate with the Pitras. It's more praying for their safe passage. It's more praying for their successful passage, right? That is important, rather than what exactly is happening, right? But most people are happy with whatever explanation is given to them. ठीक है, यही है, आप ये 4 चीज करो, इस भावना से ये 4 rituals करो. They are happy with that. But the fact that you are in this class, the fact that you are asking these questions, the fact that you want to know, means that we should study beyond, some stories given to us, right? We should study beyond it. We are here to draw intelligent conclusions. We are here not to accept. A Gyani will never accept these concepts.
उत्सव जी, ये स्टेटमेंट बहुत पावरफुल है.
हाँ जी.
Present incarnation is only a link in the chain of entire life. You see, इन हमारे जीवन में भी हमारे कितने सेल रोज मर रहे हैं और नए सेल आ रहे हैं. और हमारे जीवन में ही मृत्यु और जीवनता आ रही है. The which of course we can't see, but the doctors can tell us कि भाई हमारा जो जीवन है इसमें कितने सेल मर रहे हैं, कितने आ रहे हैं, कितने अच्छे जा रहे हैं या बुरे जा रहे हैं, अच्छे आ रहे हैं या बुरे आ रहे हैं.
Correct. So you can think not only of incarnation as ultimate death, but you can think of incarnation as every moment. Every moment you are incarnating in a certain form, and then you are reincarnating the next moment, the next day, the next year, right? In fact, it's a very strong symbolism. All our festivals. Ultimately, आपने भी देखा होगा, every festival I send a message or something. Every other festival I send a message. It's a chance to contemplate on the past and think about, plan for the future. Because every festival is actually an opportunity to reflect on the past and to be a better incarnation in the future. Because we strongly believe in this concept of incarnation. Death is nothing but a incarnation of a certain kind. Right? There'll be a reincarnation after that. So we'll come to that. So some people believe this, but we want you as a student of Vedanta to draw intelligent conclusions. Please draw intelligent conclusions.
There is another strange phenomenon concerning death. Though death is inevitable and everyone knows that all living beings are certain to die, none believes it in practice. Young or old, healthy or unhealthy, even the terminally ill feel that death is far away. It is a wonder that nobody practically believes in death. Even at a ripe old age, people keep amassing wealth, enlarging their worldly relations, behaving as though death would never take hold of them. Intellectually, they may concede, but from a practical point of view, they ignore their imminent end. It seems paradoxical. On the one hand, a person is so certain of his end, the very thought of death sends a quiver through his entire frame. His body turns cold at the mere mention of death, while on the other hand, it does not seem to bother him at all. He writes poetry, flourishes his art portraying death. What could be the reason for this paradox? How is it that the looming danger of death does not actually disturb his life? Everyone expects to live on and on without being concerned about the end. The reason for this innate assurance of longevity is the immortal nature of the self within. Every human being is quintessentially the self. That being so, its immortal nature colors his material layers, which makes his individuality assume a sense of immortality and keeps him free from the thought of death.
That's a very interesting concept. See, you've heard, I'm not the first person telling you death is inevitable. Uh, every time you've come close to a scripture, all anybody associated with the subject has told you it. You've heard it hundreds of times. So you know it. You know that death is inevitable. You know that all living creatures are impermanent. But in practice, in reality, in day-to-day life, we don't quite believe it. We don't quite have a cognizance of it. You may argue, you may say, thank God we don't have a cognizance of it. Otherwise, every time I would be thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. Thank God you're not cognizant of it. We don't, while we understand the concept, we don't believe it. We don't quite truly believe it. Yeah, occasionally when the thought crosses our mind, we get a little maybe concerned. But that's about it. We believe we'll live on. Especially now with all the fantastic things that Elon Musk is doing, we're guaranteed to live on. Did you see the rocket yesterday? A big step forward for humanity. For an extrovert. A big step forward. You know what they did? Did you all see the rocket returning to its base? You all should check out this video. I don't know if any of you have seen it or who's seen it, but basically, a couple of years ago, we've been capable of doing this, right? Elon Musk is this technology entrepreneur and incredible person. So he has a company called SpaceX. SpaceX is as the name suggests, a company which works towards creating or making space travel a reality. So you must have heard of NASA, growing up. So SpaceX is now bigger and better than NASA because they thought NASA is not doing good enough a job. It's becoming too bureaucratic. So it's about 20-year-old company now. And a few years ago, what they managed to do was every time a rocket goes to launch any aircraft into space, right? If there's a carrier into space, it is launched with a rocket, right? And what happens, even when you've heard of astronauts coming back, the rocket that launches them, it then falls into the ocean and gets wasted away. So all the money and energy required to create that rocket all gets wasted. It's a one time, it's like a use and throw, right? So that's why space travel has been very expensive for ever since it's happened, right? Because one time you're using this rocket which is taking you into space, but after that you have to throw the rocket to get rid of it, or rather, it gets rid of. So a few years ago, what they managed to do was to create reusable rockets. What is reusable rockets? Once the rocket will send the aircraft into space, it will get detached, and not only will it, I mean, after getting detached, it won't just fall into into the water or something. It will come back programmatically, land on, there used to be like a floating, a floating sort of a platform in the middle of the ocean, and they used to land it back meticulously. It's incredible. It might sound like science fiction to you, but you should watch videos of it. So yesterday, what they managed to do was, so far the rocket was landing back on this platform on space. Now, and check out this video. The rocket is coming back from space and it's falling. It's free falling. Suddenly, it gets charged up again, and it starts firing, so it slows down, and then it comes back gradually, and this tower with two chopstick like hands, uh, it comes just in between those two chopsticks, and then it gets held. Basically, basically what's happened is that the rocket which sent the spacecraft into space has come back and is now reusable. So it's becoming a lot cheaper to travel into space. But incredible! Uh, what a what a what an achievement! So if Elon Musk continues the way he does, maybe humans will live longer. We are going to really face some conundrum as far as the concept of death is concerned. But as far as our day-to-day life is concerned, we don't believe in death. We don't believe death will happen to others. It won't happen to us. And in a way, it's a great thing. Thank God we don't live with that worry. Oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Imagine every morning you wake up, am I going to die? It would be a terrible thought to have. Thank God you don't have that. And why don't you have that? Despite knowing, despite having heard hundreds of times from hundreds of people like me that, oh, it's inevitable, it's inevitable. Why don't you believe it? And this is a question which actually the great philosopher Swami Ramatirtha, he had made this assertion. That is because truly, deeply, you are the Atman, you are the self, you are this immortal being. You are this Atman which lives beyond, which is Aja, which is unborn, which neither is born nor dies. So this incarnation of yours, this individuality of yours is what has a birth and a death. This body has a birth and a death, but the real you, your real self, is immortal. And that's why,
वो डिब्बे रख दिए दोनों बस ठीक है ये
truly, that's why deeply you're not affected by it. Hmm? So it's worth considering. There are a lot of these imprints of the Atman, as it were, which are visible in your day to day life. Just as any amount of pain is unbearable or unnecessary, any amount of satisfaction seems incomplete. Even the slightest of pain is a problem, and no matter how much satisfaction you get, you still feel like you can do a little more. Nobody will say, I am happy enough. Sure, they might feel content, but if you give them more happiness, they won't. If you give them more happiness, they won't deny it. They won't say, "nahi, nahi, bahut ho gaya." And that's again an imprint of uh, your Atman, the self, which is paripurna. It's all full. So you're never going to be full, because truly, deeply, that's what you resonate with. That's what you relate to. They're all fullness, and even the slightest of blemish on that fulfillment, even the slightest of pain seems unnatural, right? That again is a reflection of that Atman in your individuality. So deep down in the innermost sense of awareness that you have, you know that you are not this body. You know that you are not this individual that is constantly being born and dying. These are all clothes, these are all names and forms that you have assumed. But deep down inside, you know that you are the Atman. It's only for you to realize that. And that sense, that knowing, that deep knowing of the Atman is what shields you from the very fear of death. And in fact, the more you turn spiritual in that sense, the closer you turn to the spirit, the more the thought of death will not be fearful to you. Then Omji, you will not do rub rub when you hear of death.
No,
It
I'm just thinking of the song only.
it becomes a thought of contemplation rather than a thought that sends a shiver down your spine, right? But for that you have to be attuned to the spirit. For that you have to be resonating with what we call Vedanta, right? The extent to which you resonate with these thoughts and ideas, to that extent, the fear of death will escape you. You will be free from it, right?
Many people have faced death. We have to learn from them. Like Jesus Christ also, he was enlightened at the time of death. And Gautam Buddha also, he died. He walked into the death. Even Muhammad also walked into the death. He knew that he's going to die. You see, this is what we have to learn actually. Instead of fearing death, we have to know the death and walk happily. That is how we can carry what we are investing in this world. We can carry that investment in the next world, not
See,
the money.
forget Muhammad or Christ or Krishna or any of, because when we use these examples, they seem almost out of reach, right? Think of a common person. See, think
No,
of a
we have to
soldier.
learn from them. We have
Think
to
of
learn.
a soldier. Think of a soldier, for example.
Yeah, soldier. Yeah,
A soldier is able to walk into a, or
yeah, yeah.
anyone. Think of a, I mean, we
Bhagat
see
Singh.
incredible
Bhagat,
acts of bravery from people that are unknown and unheard of, right? Um,
अरे शहीदों से सीख लो.
See, anybody, the fear of death comes from attachment
Yeah,
the to yourself, and the extent to which you are detached from yourself, the extent to which you are unselfish or selfless, the extent to which you are dedicated to a higher cause, to that extent, the fear of yourself and subsequently the fear of death will not be there. It's very interesting how it works. If you are dedicated to a higher cause, you won't be worried about yourself. In fact, you'll happily sacrifice yourself if need be. That's what a soldier does. That's what people engaged in any form of service do. That's what normal people in 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 times of crisis do. Today, right now, if there's a fire, Khuda na khasta, there's a fire, there's someone stuck inside. How will you act in that situation? Or right now, if there's, I don't know, you see some of these videos where people get stuck in between the railway tracks, and someone goes to puts their own life in danger to immediately help them, right? Act swiftly, and these are all examples of not worrying about yourself and going the extra mile to help another person. So the concept being that the extent to which you are unselfish, the extent to which you are selfless, the extent to which you are dedicated to something beyond yourself, to that extent, this thought of death will not bother you. You won't be afraid. So worth thinking about, worth contemplating about. I will not start the next section. So naturally, the next section is talking about the theory of reincarnation. What happens when a person dies? But we'll start this in the next class. It's worth thinking so far about the very concept of death and what the thought of death actually brings in upon us. Contemplate upon why that is, which we've thought so far about. So, with that, we'll conclude today's class. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, we'll conclude and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Thank you very much. Very much.
Anji, Hari Om. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on Wednesday morning.
Thank
Namaste.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.